Still together sometime?
Nah, we don't get down like that. You know, it's just me and Dub.
Problem with Mack?
Yeah, it's a problem. Just a violation that can't be overlooked.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll leave it at that.
In hip-hop, friendships don't always stand the test of time, and that's exactly what went down between Mack 10 and Ice Cube. Once upon a time, they were unstoppable on the West Coast, repping hard as part of Westside Connection.
That beat I like.
Ice Cube.
Boom. Do y'all like this beat right here? Boom.
They were shutting down stages, setting records, and holding LA together with WC right beside them. But soon, the brotherhood that looked unbreakable started to crumble fast. What began as a solid bond turned into tension, and that tension exploded into a fallout that's lasted for decades. Before Mack 10 ever crossed paths with Ice Cube, he was already grinding in LA's underground scene, making noise and building respect. Music wasn't just some pastime. This man was serious about his craft. He grew up vibing the NWA, studying how they spoke raw truth about street life and owned their stories. Those real-life experiences hit home for Mack. They reflected what he lived through every day. And that fueled his ambition to create something authentic. He started developing his own flow, searching for his lane, until he connected with a local rap crew called First Amendment. That was his first real shot at the game, his training ground. There, he learned how to move like a pro, mastering the studio, sharpening his lyrics, and bringing raw energy on stage. Being part of that crew gave him a glimpse of what a real rap career could look like, and he was hooked. Word started spreading about Mack's talent, and soon he was catching the attention of major players in the city. One of the biggest early believers? Eazy-E. The NWA legend saw potential in Mack early on, and even had him ghostwrite a few records. That cosign was priceless. It gave Mack a massive confidence boost and opened doors that were usually locked tight in the industry. Through those connections, Mack started linking up with heavyweight DJs like Bobcat and DJ Pooh, both well known for their credibility in the game. Those new relationships eventually led him straight into the circle of the Lynch Mob, Ice Cube's powerful crew, and that's where everything really started to change. Before long, Mack 10 found himself locking in studio sessions with Ice Cube, and the vibe was instant. Their chemistry clicked from the jump. They started recording together, feeding off each other's energy, and that bond turned into a powerful musical connection that felt unstoppable. Things got even deeper when Mack joined the Lynch Mob on tour. Life on the road with Cube was wild, packed venues, roaring crowds, and non-stop energy. Each show leveled him up, exposing him to a whole new wave of fans, while he kept lacing fire verses for Lynch Mob tracks. Then in 1995, Mack 10 scored big when he landed a spot on the Friday movie soundtrack, a massive win that made everyone in hip-hop take notice. That single move flipped his visibility overnight, and with Cube backing him heavy, Mack soon locked down a deal with Priority Records, officially launching his solo career in style. From that point, he wasn't just part of Cube's circle, he was set for a serious run in the industry. But even though Mack 10 and Ice Cube were close collaborators, they came from totally different worlds. Mack wasn't just rapping about the streets, he came from them. Raised in Inglewood's Queen Street neighborhood, home to the Queen Street Bloods, Mack's environment automatically pulled him into gang life, whether he chose it or not. During those days, LA County was a battlefield, the drug trade booming, violence erupting, and rival sets clashing non-stop. Mack grew up seeing it all: shootings, raids, deals going down in broad daylight, chaos everywhere. That world shaped him completely. He wasn't copying street culture, he was street culture.
And they was blood. But I was with it, so I didn't give a.
As his name grew, so did his reputation. Mack was known as someone you didn't test, a straight-up powerhouse who wouldn't back down from anyone. He carried real weight, both in the streets and the industry. Because of that, Mack 10 became Cube's go-to soldier, the muscle in Ice Cube's camp whenever drama popped off. Whenever Ice Cube had drama, whether it was beef with other rappers or tension with labels, Mack 10 was always right there, ready to move. He wasn't the type to sit back and talk. If Cube had an issue, Mack was standing beside him, no questions asked. Just having Mack on Cube's team made every situation smoother because everyone knew Mack 10 wasn't about bluffing. He was really about that life. But that's exactly where their differences became too obvious to ignore. Mack 10 came straight out the trenches, while Ice Cube's background was a whole different story. According to Cube's own biography, he grew up in a solid middle-class neighborhood, not in a war zone. He went to some of LA's better schools and didn't have to dodge bullets or fight for survival every day. Cube's childhood was calm compared to the chaos many rappers live through. Still, Cube built his entire image around the rawness of street life, hardcore rhymes about gang wars, police tension, and survival in the hood. His lyrics were powerful, no doubt, but as his fame grew, people began asking a serious question. How real was Ice Cube really?
Out of blood, he's not really a thug. He's an entertainer. And that's the real. And you gotta get that bullshit out your head. Because what he talking about, he ain't living. And what I lived is what I'm talking about.
Over the years, plenty of OGs from LA have spoken up about it. Some claimed Cube was more of a storyteller than a soldier, someone who watched from the sidelines instead of actually living that life. They said he wasn't really in the trenches like that his verses painted pictures he didn't personally experience. To those who truly came from that world, that didn't sit right at all. They felt Cube was profiting from pain, cashing in on the struggles that real people had to survive. While some were losing loved ones, getting locked up, or fighting just to make it out alive, Cube was turning those same stories into hit records and Hollywood money. For many street veterans, that felt like a slap in the face. They saw it as disrespect, like Cube was wearing the streets as a costume, using it to sell records without honoring the real cost behind it. In their eyes, he was selling a fantasy version of gang life while staying far from its consequences. Yet despite all the criticism, O'Shea Jackson, better known as Ice Cube, remains a legend in two worlds.
Relation that can't be overlooked.
Whether people remember him as the fearless rapper who helped shape gangsta rap, or the confident Hollywood star who brought that same energy to the big screen, his impact can't be denied. When people hear the name Ice Cube, one thing always stands out: his massive impact on hip-hop. He wasn't just part of the culture, he helped shape what we now know as gangsta rap. Cube has never been shy about saying he laid the foundation for that raw, confrontational sound. As a key member of NWA, Cube was the group's lyrical weapon, the one dropping fearless, razor-sharp verses packed with social anger and street commentary. His pen game gave NWA their bite, turning them into a movement that shook America. But here's the thing. Unlike artists like Mack 10, Cube's stories mostly came from what he saw, not what he lived. He wasn't raised in the middle of chaos. He studied it, analyzed it, and flipped it into powerful lyrics. Alonzo Williams, founder of the world-class Wrecking Crew and one of the first people to give Cube a real shot in music, has described him as a smart, focused kid. According to Alonzo, Cube was polite, articulate, and highly ambitious, but he wasn't out there in the trenches. In his eyes, Cube wasn't deep in gang life or violent street drama. He was more like an observer, soaking in his surroundings and turning them into art. And honestly, there's nothing wrong with that. Plenty of artists pull inspiration from their environment. But when you line Cube up next to someone like Mack 10, the difference hits you right away. Mack lived the things Cube wrote about. He wasn't observing the struggle, he was surviving it.
Hey man, you know, we got a couple of tracks from the album. You want to hear it?
We played him a song called Throw Your Set in the Air. And he was like, oh, that's banging. Can I get that for the movie instead?
They're like, man, we'd love to give it to you, but you know, this is going to be the single on our...
When the two finally linked up, their chemistry created something special: Westside Connection. Alongside WC, they built a powerhouse group that repped the West Coast with pride during one of hip-hop's most divided eras. They were dropping hits, headlining tours, and standing strong for LA while East Coast-West Coast tension was tearing the rap world apart. To the fans, they looked unbreakable, three kings united by loyalty and brotherhood. But behind the scenes, cracks were starting to show. What ended their partnership wasn't about money, record deals, or industry politics. It was something way more personal: family. According to Mack 10, the problem started with Ice Cube's brother-in-law. In a now-deleted 2010 interview with All Hip Hop, and later in a 2020 sit-down with DJ Vlad, Mack laid out his side of the story. He claimed Cube's brother-in-law had been seriously disrespectful toward him. And while everyone expected Mack to snap and handle it the street way, he surprised everyone by trying to keep it peaceful. Instead of reacting with violence, Mack tried to take the grown man route. He went directly to Cube, not once, not twice, but 4 or 5 different times, asking him to step in and handle it before things got ugly.
Throw your set in the air thing. I said, no, we didn't give him that. He goes, well, you know, that finally I hear it. Sure enough, there it is, you know, the same. It's like some of the words are changed around, but for the most part, the chorus is.
Mack said he wanted to keep it respectful, but the situation kept boiling under the surface, and Cube's silence was only making things worse. I wasn't trying to start anything, Mack 10 explained during his Vlad TV interview. If you go to somebody 5 times before it escalates, that shows you were trying to be diplomatic about it. And he was right. Nobody wanted things to reach that level. That alone says a lot about Mack's mindset at the time. This was a man known for being fearless and confrontational, a real street dude who didn't back down from anyone. But because this involved Ice Cube's family, Mack 10 handled it differently. He actually showed patience, something rare in situations like that. He gave Cube multiple chances to fix the problem before it exploded. And honestly, if it had been anyone else, they probably wouldn't have gotten that kind of grace from Mack. Still, despite all his efforts to keep it cool, things eventually got out of control. According to Mack, Cube's brother-in-law ended up getting beat up, and that was the final straw. That moment shattered everything.
On the Temple of Boom record, and I thought to myself, wait a minute, that's my line. In my opinion, I felt like he saw my reaction, and I walked out of the room for a second to make a phone call. When I came back, the line.
From there, the friendship and brotherhood between Mack and Cube completely fell apart, and their relationship never bounced back. What once looked like an unbreakable bond turned into years of silence and tension. Over time, Mack 10 has spoken openly about the fallout, saying he never thought it should have gone that far. In his eyes, the situation wasn't serious enough to destroy Westside Connection. During a Q&A with All Hip Hop, Mack reflected on it, explaining that from his perspective, nothing unforgivable happened. He put it simply, I didn't do anything to him, and he didn't do anything to me. Mack said it all came down to a misunderstanding. They had an argument that was taken the wrong way because Cube's wife was present. If she wasn't there, we'd probably still be doing records. To him, it was a simple disagreement that spiraled into something way bigger than it should have been. Even after all these years, Mack 10 has admitted he still feels some regret about how everything played out. In a 2011 interview with Vibe, he confessed that he wasn't even sure if he and Cube would ever talk again, and that uncertainty still seemed to weigh on him. He's echoed that same feeling in later interviews too. Still, Mack's always made it clear that he doesn't hold grudges. He's not walking around bitter or resentful. He just sees it as a situation that went left, something that could have been avoided if cooler heads had prevailed. At the same time, there's been talk that Mack 10 might have also been frustrated with Ice Cube for allegedly refusing to go on a second tour to promote Westside Connection's final studio album, Terrorist Threats. Neither of them has ever confirmed that rumor, but it's one of the theories that fans and insiders believe might have added more tension to an already rocky situation.
Seeing nobody from Cypress Hill. And they was blood. But I was with this nigga, so I didn't get.
While Mack 10 has spoken pretty openly about his version of events, Cube has kept things locked down tight. Whenever he's asked about it in interviews, he stays vague, never spilling details, just hinting that there was a violation he couldn't ignore. And in street terms, that word hits hard. A violation means someone crossed a serious line, something deep enough to change the way you look at a person forever. Cube briefly touched on the topic during an appearance on It Is What It Is, hosted by Cameron. When asked why he still performs with WC but not Mack 10, Cube didn't dodge the question, but he also didn't sugarcoat it. Nah, we don't get down like that, Cube said. It's just me and Dub. He left it at that. No extra explanation, no drama, but his tone said everything. Whatever happened clearly ran deep enough for him to cut ties completely. On the other hand, Mack 10 has been just as clear about where he stands today. In a 2023 interview with Bootleg Kev, Mack revisited the situation again and made his feelings known. He said he doesn't have any hate toward Cube. There's no bitterness, no grudge, but he's also not out here chasing a reunion either. Mack's at peace with how things ended. From his perspective, he tried to handle it the right way, with respect and maturity.
Whooped on it. Somehow his chain fell in my hand. I don't know how it got in my hand, but it fell.
From Cube's side, though, it seems like a boundary got crossed that can't be repaired, and that difference in how they each see the same event is exactly what's kept them apart for decades. For fans of Westside Connection, that ongoing silence between the two is tough to accept, especially knowing how tight they used to be. They were brothers in arms, always standing together when things got tense. One of the biggest examples of that loyalty was during Cube's feud with Cypress Hill. Mack 10 stood tall right beside him, no hesitation. That whole situation started with the Friday movie soundtrack, which Cube personally curated. It should have been a celebration of West Coast unity, but instead, it turned into one of the most talked about rap beefs of that era. And through it all, Mack 10 was riding for Cube, proving just how deep that loyalty once ran. One of the standout tracks on the Friday movie soundtrack was Roll It Up, Light It Up, Smoke It Up, a banger from Cypress Hill. The group had agreed to let that song be part of the project, no problem there. But according to Be Real, that's not where the real drama started. The real issue began when Ice Cube got a private listen to some unreleased Cypress Hill material during the studio session. While checking out songs for the Friday soundtrack, Cube got an early preview of their upcoming album, Temples of Boom. During that session, Cypress Hill played him a track called Throw Your Set in the Air, which was supposed to be their lead single. Cube loved it instantly. He thought it would fit perfectly for the Friday soundtrack and straight up asked if he could use it. But Cypress Hill politely shut it down, saying no, that song was too important. It was the title track for their next album and totally off limits. Cube pressed a little, asking them to play it again. They did, but their answer stayed the same. That song wasn't up for grabs. Fast forward to when the Friday soundtrack dropped, right before Temples of Boom came out. Not long after, one of Be Real's friends hit him up and said, "Hey, did you let Ice Cube use one of your album tracks for Friday?" Confused, Be Real said no, they had only cleared Roll It Up, Light It Up, Smoke It Up. But the friend wasn't talking about that one. He said there was another track on the soundtrack that sounded way too close to Throw Your Set in the Air. Skeptical but curious, Be Real decided to listen for himself, and when he did, his stomach dropped. Ice Cube's song sounded eerily similar to their track. The hook, the flow, even the energy, it all felt like a remix of Cypress Hill's original, just with a few tiny tweaks to the lyrics.
To squash this, I said, just like you, all he's got to do is call me.
And I explained to him where I was coming from. I don't got nothing to do with it, but that's my homeboy, and I'm riding with it. He said, you know what, homie? I can respect that. I can't
Even though he earned respect for standing by Cube during every war, the tension and politics that came with it started weighing heavy on him. Behind closed doors, Mack was realizing that loyalty came with limits, especially when the same people you defend don't always defend you back. The streets were watching, the industry was talking, and Mack's name was getting pulled into drama that wasn't even his doing. After Westside Connection fell apart, Mack 10 didn't disappear. He doubled down on his grind. He launched his own label, Who Bangin' Records, and started signing local talent, giving fresh West Coast artists a shot to shine. He dropped solo albums, collaborated with legends, and built a brand that stayed rooted in the streets. He wanted to prove that he could stand tall on his own name. No cosigns, no crew politics, just pure hustle. Meanwhile, Ice Cube had already shifted gears. He was transitioning deeper into Hollywood, producing blockbuster movies and building a media empire. He was evolving, less focused on rap beefs and more focused on power moves. Cube had found his lane in entertainment, and once that money and influence hit a certain level, going back to rap feuds didn't make sense for him anymore. Still, fans couldn't let go of what Westside Connection used to be. Every time Cube or Mack 10 dropped new music, interviews, or public appearances, people wanted to know, would they ever reunite? Could the West Coast legendary trio ever come back together? But year after year, the silence said it all. No new records, no performances, just memories of what they used to be. In interviews, Mack 10 kept it respectful. He never dissed Cube, never aired dirty laundry beyond what was already known, but his tone always hinted at unfinished business, like there was still something left unsaid between them. Cube, on the other hand, stayed cool and quiet, brushing off questions with the same calm energy every time, as if that chapter of his life was closed for good. And that's what makes their story hit so hard. Two West Coast legends who built an empire together, then watched it crumble over pride, silence, and a few decisions that couldn't be undone. Even today, fans still dream of seeing them on stage again. Mack 10, Ice Cube, and WC side by side, representing LA the way they once did. Feeling betrayed, Be Real vented his anger in the studio, and word got back to Ice Cube fast through Mack 10. Cube reached out to smooth things over, saying it was just a misunderstanding. For a while, it seemed like the tension cooled down. Cube even invited Be Real to the studio later on to record a feature for Caution, a group signed under Lynch Mob Records. But once Be Real got there, he couldn't believe what he heard. During the session, another track started playing, and some of the lyrics sounded almost identical to lines from Temples of Boom. It felt like deja vu. Be Real said he caught the look on Cube's face. Cube noticed that he'd noticed. A few minutes later, Cube stepped out of the room, and when he came back, those lines were mysteriously gone from the track. To Be Real, that was all the proof he needed. Cube had been caught red-handed again. That was the final straw for Cypress Hill. Cypress Hill didn't waste any time firing back. They dropped No Rest for the Wicked, a brutal diss track aimed directly at Ice Cube, and they didn't hold anything back. The song was raw, unapologetic, and packed with venom, calling Cube out by name and airing out the whole situation in public. But if there's one thing Ice Cube's known for, it's his sharp pen and his refusal to back down from any beef. So when Cypress Hill took that shot, Cube came swinging right back. And this time, he wasn't alone. He brought Mack 10 into the fight. Together, they unleashed their own diss track, King of the Hill, going straight at Cypress Hill with cold precision and heavy bars. Even though Mack 10 was still early in his career at the time, he didn't hesitate for a second. He didn't care that he'd never even met anyone from Cypress Hill personally. To him, loyalty was everything. If Cube had a problem, he had a problem too. Mack 10 made it clear where he stood. He was riding for Cube all the way. And what made it even wilder was that some members of Cypress Hill were Bloods just like Mack 10. But that didn't matter one bit. Cube came first, no questions asked. His loyalty to his crew outweighed everything else. The feud between Ice Cube and Cypress Hill quickly exploded, dividing not just fans, but the entire LA rap scene. The tension in the city was already thick back then, and this beef just turned up the heat even more. People were choosing sides, rumors were flying, and the energy around the West Coast was getting intense. Around that same time, Cube found himself caught up in another conflict, this one involving LA artist Cam and Solo. It started as a business disagreement, but things didn't stay professional for long. According to Solo, one day he and Cube crossed paths at a traffic light in Los Angeles, and the situation got physical real quick. He claimed that the encounter turned into a full-on fight right there in the street, and that he actually got the better of Cube during the scuffle. By the time it was over, Solo said Cube's chain had somehow ended up in his hands. That story spread fast through LA, adding even more drama to Cube's name during a time when it felt like every corner of the city had something to say about him. After all those battles and endless rumors, Ice Cube's name was buzzing through every corner of the West Coast. Between the Cypress Hill feud, the street altercations, and whispers about business beefs, Cube had built a reputation that stretched way beyond music. But for Mack 10, things were different. His loyalty to Cube had turned into both a blessing and a curse. But as it stands, that reunion seems more like a legend than a possibility, a reminder that in hip-hop, loyalty runs deep until it doesn't. Years have passed, and the distance between Ice Cube and Mack 10 still hasn't closed. The Westside Connection legacy remains frozen in time, powerful, unforgettable, but unfinished. Fans keep holding on to hope that one day the two might finally sit down and talk things out, but both seem to have moved on with their own paths. Still, that silence speaks louder than words. For Mack 10, his story didn't stop when Westside Connection ended, not even close. He kept his independent grind alive, dropping projects under Who Bangin' Records and staying connected to the LA scene. He might not be topping charts anymore, but his influence runs deep in the streets. Younger rappers still mention his name with respect because Mack built his legacy on authenticity, something that can't be faked or forgotten. On the flip side, Ice Cube evolved into one of the biggest names in entertainment. Between movies, business ventures, and his Big 3 basketball league, Cube turned himself into a global brand. He shifted from being the rebel voice of NWA to a business mogul with real power. Yet, even with all his success, fans still remember that raw, hungry version of Cube, the one who spit fire beside Mack 10 and WC, repping LA with a vengeance. Every now and then, interviews and podcasts stir up the old conversation. What really happened between Ice Cube and Mack 10? But even after decades, neither of them has laid out the full story. It's like both men silently agreed to let the past stay buried, no matter how much the world keeps asking. The mystery keeps fans hooked, wondering if pride, loyalty, or family was the real reason behind the break.
Still, it's hard to talk about West Coast hip-hop without mentioning what Westside Connection meant to the culture. They came at a time when unity on the West was needed most, when the East versus West rivalry was tearing hip-hop apart. Mack 10, Cube, and WC stood shoulder to shoulder, reminding everyone that LA had power, pride, and a voice that couldn't be silenced. Their records weren't just music, they were declarations of dominance. To this day, songs like Bow Down still hit like a statement, demanding respect from anyone who ever doubted the West Coast. And while the group may never return, the impact they left behind continues to echo through new generations of rappers who grew up studying their moves. Maybe one day the energy will shift. Maybe Cube and Mack 10 will cross paths again and finally put the past to rest. Or maybe the story will stay exactly how it is, legendary but unfinished. Either way, Westside Connection will always stand as one of the most iconic rap groups in history, a symbol of loyalty, power, and the heavy price that sometimes comes with both. Not one to let a moment like that slip by, Solo made sure to make a statement. He showed up at a Cypress Hill concert at the House of Blues, holding Ice Cube's chain high in the air for everyone to see. The crowd went absolutely crazy. Cameras flashed, people screamed, and the moment was captured in a photo that spread everywhere, a bold move that instantly became part of LA rap legend. With tensions already boiling between Ice Cube, Mack 10, and Cypress Hill, fans started to worry that things might explode beyond the music. It was the mid-90s, and hip-hop beefs were turning deadly far too often. Everyone feared this one could go the same way. But luckily, cooler heads finally stepped in before it went too far. As the situation started to calm, something surprising happened. Mack 10 found himself playing peacemaker. According to Mack, someone passed him Be Real's number, saying the Cypress Hill frontman wanted to talk. Mack didn't hesitate. He agreed to take the call. When they finally got on the phone, the two had a real conversation, straight from the heart. Mack explained that his loyalty to Ice Cube meant he had to stand with him during the feud, even though it meant clashing with fellow Bloods. It wasn't personal, it was principle. To Mack, loyalty was everything, and switching sides wasn't an option. Be Real, to his credit, showed nothing but respect. He told Mack he understood where he was coming from and didn't hold it against him. That phone call changed everything. It became the turning point that helped cool down one of the heated rivalries in West Coast rap. From there, Mack 10 helped connect the dots. He convinced Ice Cube to hop on the phone with Be Real too. The two finally talked it out man to man, clearing the air after months of tension and accusations. And just like that, the beef was officially squashed. The whole West Coast breathed a sigh of relief. No bloodshed, no more disses, just peace between two major forces in hip-hop. Looking back now, it's wild to see how close that situation came to spinning out of control. What started with a misunderstood song almost turned into full-on chaos, but in the end, respect and communication saved the day. Mack 10 went from Cube's frontline soldier to the one who actually helped bring peace back to the scene. That moment was more than just the end of a beef. It was proof that even in an industry built on competition and pride, real men can still talk it out. It showed growth, maturity, and what true loyalty looks like when it's tested. And that's how one of the wildest stories in hip-hop history came full circle, from unity to betrayal to reconciliation. The Westside Connection era might be over, but the impact they left behind will never fade. Their music, their message, and their legacy continue to inspire new generations coming up in the game. If you rocked with this story and want to see more deep dives into hip-hop's untold drama, make sure to like, subscribe, share, and drop a comment below. Let me know your favorite Westside Connection track, and tell me, do you think Cube and Mack 10 will ever reunite?